meditation. Inspiring with humor, laugh your way to motivation, presented by David Pizarra. I actually found it funny reading the title when I first read it. As humans, we are hardwired to learn through story, so David will be using a mixture of jokes, stories, and personal insights to inspire you to keep growing and changing. His brand of authentic sharing lets you see into his journeys and how he finds the funny to create a teachable moment. David Pizarra is a columnist with the Santa Monica Daily Press, author of 6 books, and a professional speaker who helps people find their story and voice. That should be really interesting. So please come. Today's meditation is led by Hilary Stewardson.
This is a meditation that you can do anytime during the day just to relax. So that's what it's all about. So begin by settling yourself comfortably in your chair, feet on the ground, and your hands resting on your thighs. Now just gently close your eyes and allow your eyes to close easily. Allow your mind to clear itself of all active thoughts and begin to focus on your breathing. Allow your breathing to slow naturally and become deeper and deeper, easily and naturally. Take a couple of deep breaths and let them out slowly. Another one, and slowly. Breathe in feelings of calm and relaxation down into your body. Allow any feeling of tension to go out of your body as you breathe out. And breathe fresh relaxation into your body as you breathe in. Allow your thoughts to go farther and farther away. Just let them drift away. Slowly withdraw your awareness from anything that is happening outside of you and settle deeper and deeper into your own internal environment. Do this naturally. Allow yourself to sink deeper and deeper into the calm, peaceful place entirely within yourself. Settle yourself into your own mind, your own self, your own body. Relax the muscles around your eyes and around your mouth. Now relax your neck. Tense your shoulders and then relax them. Allow that relaxed feeling to flow gently down your body, even to the tips of your toes. So allow yourself just to let go and relax. If you have thoughts that are intruding, just take them and put them in a big trash can and allow yourself to relax even more deeply. They'll be there again if you need them. Feel your emotions becoming balanced and peaceful. And just take a moment to appreciate this deep relaxation. Just let go. It is so peaceful. Just let go. Now wiggle your toes and your fingers. Take a deep breath and slowly become aware of the outside world again around you. Feel refreshed. Take another deep breath and be aware of how wonderful it feels to be fully relaxed. Allow your eyes to open gently and come back fully to this lovely place, feeling beautifully relaxed, happy, and at peace.
This week's presentation, Holiday Stories, presented by Michael Warren. Michael's going to read two well-loved Christmas stories. First, Hudu McBrides, Christmas by Stephen Leacock, a famous Canadian humorist who died in 1944. For many years, this story was a staple of Canadian radio at Christmas time. Next, he will read the Christmas classic, The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. Michael Warren was part of the group that founded Open Circle in 2001. Michael is a poet and playwright and has published a collection of his poems under the title A Particular Blue. Michael has appeared on stage in 8 plays at Lakeside Little Theater. For the last 7 years, he has been writing the theater reviews for Ojo de Lago in his column Front Row Center. Please welcome Michael Warren.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Is this on?
Yep.
Good. 2 years ago, I did a reading here of A Child's Christmas in Wales by Dylan Thomas. Anybody remember that? Yes. It was quite well received. Well, that was a prose poem. This is completely different today, and I hope you'll enjoy both of the stories. Stephen Leacock, probably better known to Canadians. Anybody here is Canadian and knows Stephen Leacock? Oh, quite a few. He seems to be better known in Canada than in the United States, although he's known as the Canadian Mark Twain. He had a distinguished academic career. He was the longtime chair of the Department of Economics and Political Science at McGill University in Montreal. But mainly he's recognized for his humorous writing. And between 1915 and 1925, he was the best-known humorist in the English-speaking world. He died in 1944, and in 1947, the Stephen Leacock Prize was set up as an annual award for Canadian humorous writing. I haven't won it yet, but you never know. I guess it would help if I submitted something. Has anyone here been to his summer cottage near Orillia, Ontario? Yeah, I've been there too. It's on Lake Couchiching near Orillia, which is about 2 hours drive north of Toronto. It's a very, very attractive area. And it's now maintained as a museum. It's called the Stephen Leacock Memorial Home. It's worth a visit if you're ever in that area. So the story I'm going to read today, it was actually a staple of Canadian radio for a long time. It's called Hudu McFiggin's Christmas, and it's about the swindle known as Santa Claus. This Santa Claus business is played out. It's a sneaking, underhand method, and the sooner it's exposed, the better. For a parent to get up under cover of the darkness of night and palm off a 10-cent necktie on a boy who had been expecting a $10 watch, and then say that an angel sent it to him is low. Undeniably low. I had a good opportunity of observing how the thing worked this Christmas in the case of young Hudu McFiggin, the son and heir of the McFiggins at whose house I board. Hudu McFiggin is a good boy, a religious boy. He had been given to understand that Santa Claus would bring nothing to his father and mother because grown-up people don't get presents from the angels. So he saved up all his pocket money and bought a box of cigars for his father and a 75-cent diamond brooch for his mother. His own fortunes he left in the hands of the angels. But he prayed. He prayed every night for weeks that Santa Claus would bring him a pair of skates and a puppy dog and an air gun and a bicycle and a Noah's Ark and a sleigh and a drum. Altogether about $150 worth of stuff. I went into Hudu's room quite early Christmas morning. I had an idea that the scene would be interesting. I woke him up and he sat up in bed, his eyes glistening with radiant expectation. and began hauling things out of his stocking. The first parcel was bulky. It was done up quite loosely and had an odd look generally. "Ha ha!" cried Hudu gleefully as he began undoing it. "I'll bet it's the puppy dog all wrapped up in paper." And was it the puppy dog? No, by no means. It was a pair of nice, strong number 4 boots, laces and all, labelled Hudu from Santa Claus. And underneath, Santa Claus had written 95 net. The boy's jaw fell with delight. "It's boots," he said, and plunged in his hand again. He began hauling away at another parcel with renewed hope on his face. This time the thing seemed like a little round box. Hudu tore the paper off it with a feverish hand. He shook it. Something rattled inside. "It's a watch and chain! It's a watch and chain!" he shouted. Then he pulled the lid off. And was it a watch and chain? No. It was a box of nice, brand new celluloid collars, a dozen of them, all alike and all his own size. The boy was so pleased that you could see his face crack up with pleasure. He waited a few minutes until his intense joy subsided. Then he tried again. This time, the packet was long and hard. It resisted the touch and had a sort of funnel shape. "It's a toy pistol," said the boy, trembling with excitement. "Gee, I hope there are lots of caps with it. I'll fire some off now and wake up father." "No, my poor child, you will not wake your father with that. It is a useful thing, but it needs not caps and it fires no bullets. And you cannot wake a sleeping man with a toothbrush." Yes, it was a toothbrush, a regular beauty, pure bone all through and ticketed with a little paper, Hudu from Santa Claus. Again, the expression of intense joy passed over the boy's face, and the tears of gratitude started from his eyes. He wiped them away with his toothbrush and passed on. The next packet was much larger and evidently contained something soft and bulky. It had been too long to go into the stocking and was tied outside. "I wonder what this is," Hudu mused, half afraid to open it. Then his heart gave a great leap and he forgot all his other presents in the anticipation of this one. "It's the drum," he gasped. "It's the drum, all wrapped up." Drum nothing. It was pants. A pair of the nicest little short pants, yellowish-brown short pants, with dear little stripes of colour running across both ways. And here again Santa Claus had written, "Hudu from Santa Claus, 1 fortnight." But there was something wrapped up in it. Oh yes, there was a pair of braces wrapped up in it. Braces with a little steel sliding thing, so that you could slide your pants up to your neck if you wanted to. The boy gave a dry sob of satisfaction. Then he took out his last present. "It's a book," he said as he unwrapped it. "I wonder if it is fairy stories or adventures. Oh, I hope it's adventures. I'll read it all morning." No, Hudu, it was not precisely adventures. It was a small family Bible. Hudu had now seen all his presents, and he arose and dressed. But he still had the fun of playing with his toys. That is always the chief delight of Christmas morning. First he played with his toothbrush. He got a whole lot of water and brushed all his teeth with it. This was huge. Then he played with his collars. He had no end of fun with them, taking them all out one by one and swearing at them, and then putting them back and swearing at the whole lot together. The next toy was his pants. He had immense fun there, putting them on and taking them off again, and then trying to guess which side was which by merely looking at them. After that, he took his book and read some adventures called Genesis till breakfast time. Then he went downstairs and kissed his father and mother. His father was smoking a cigar, and his mother had her new brooch on. Hudu's face was thoughtful, and a light seemed to have broken in upon his mind. Indeed, I think it altogether likely that next Christmas he will hang on to his own money and take chances on what the angels bring. It's a cute story. Now I've got a story by O. Henry. Some of you probably know it. The Gift of the Magi. O. Henry was a pen name. His real name was William Sidney Porter. He had a difficult life. He was always short of money. While working as a teller for the First National Bank of Austin, he was accused of embezzlement. He lost his job and subsequently went to jail. He started writing short stories in the jail and had 14 stories published under various pseudonyms. After his release from prison, he moved to New York to be near his publishers. While there, he wrote 381 short stories. He wrote a story a week for over a year for the New York World Sunday magazine. By the way, the New York World is why we call the World Series the World Series. If you didn't know, they sponsored the first baseball championship. He was alcoholic. He died of cirrhosis of the liver in 1910 at the age of 47. So he had a difficult and not very happy life, but he was a wonderful writer. And if you've read any O. Henry's short stories, there's always a kind of twist at the end. And there's an O. Henry Award. It's a prestigious annual prize for short story writing. So I'm going to read The Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. $1.87. That was all. And 60 cents of it was in pennies. Pennies saved 1 and 2 at a time by bulldozing the grocer and the vegetable man and the butcher until one's cheeks burned with the silent imputation of parsimony that such close dealing implied. 3 times Della counted it. $1.87. And the next day would be Christmas. There was clearly nothing to do but flop down on the shabby little couch and howl. So Della did it, which instigates the moral reflection that life is made up of sobs, sniffles, and smiles, with sniffles predominating. While the mistress of the home is gradually subsiding from the first stage to the second, take a look at the home. A furnished flat at $8 per week. It did not exactly beg a description, but it certainly had that word on the lookout for the mendicancy squad. In the vestibule below was a letterbox into which no letter would go, and an electric button from which no mortal finger could coax a ring. Also appertaining thereunto was a card bearing the name Mr. James Dillingham Young. The Dillingham had been flung to the breeze during a former period of prosperity when its possessor was being paid $30 per week. Now, when the income was shrunk to $20, though, they were thinking seriously of contracting to a modest and unassuming fee. But whenever Mr. James Dillingham Young came home and reached his flat above, he was called Jim, and greatly hugged by Mrs. James Dillingham Young, already introduced to you as Della, which is all very good. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. She stood by the window. I know. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a grey cat walking a grey fence in a grey backyard. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87. I know. Can you hear me? No. Oh, too bad. Oh, Henry.
I think you'll have to use your theater voice, Michael.
I'll have to project.
Amplifier just went out on us. Sorry about that.
How about the mic? The hand mic. There's a hand mic right there. To your right.
Theater voice.
Is this working?
But oh my God.
Is this working? Is this working? No.
Oh, yes.
All right, I can project.
Use the microphone now.
Della, it's all right. Della finished her cry and attended to her cheeks with the powder rag. She stood by the window and looked out dully at a grey cat walking a grey fence in a grey backyard. Tomorrow would be Christmas Day, and she had only $1.87 with which to buy Jim a present. She had been saving every penny she could for months with this result. $20 a week doesn't go far. Expenses had been greater than she had calculated. They always are. Only $1.87 to buy a present. I'll project. Only $1.87 to buy a present for Jim. Her Jim. Many a happy hour she had spent planning for something nice for him. Something fine and rare and sterling. Something just a little bit near to being worthy of the honor of being owned by Jim. There was a pier glass between the windows of the room. Perhaps you have seen a pier glass in an $8 flat. A very thin and very agile person may, by observing his reflection in a rapid sequence of longitudinal strips, obtain a fairly accurate conception of his looks. Della, being slender, had mastered the art. Suddenly she whirled from the window and stood before the glass. Her eyes were shining brilliantly, but her face had lost its color within 20 seconds. Rapidly she pulled down her hair and let it fall to its full length. Now, there were two possessions of the James Dillingham Youngs in which they both took a mighty pride. One was Jim's gold watch that had been his father's and his grandfather's. The other was Della's hair. Had the Queen of Sheba lived in the flat across the air shaft, Della would have let her hair hang out the window some day to dry, just to depreciate Her Majesty's jewels and gifts. Had King Solomon been the janitor, with all his treasures piled up in the basement, Jim would have pulled out his watch every time he passed, just to see him pluck at his beard from envy. So now Della's beautiful hair fell about her, rippling and shining like a cascade of brown waters. It reached below her knee and made itself almost a garment for her. And then she did it up again, nervously and quickly. Once she faltered for a minute and stood still while a tear or two splashed on the worn red carpet. On went her old brown jacket. On went her old brown hat. With a whirl of skirts and with the brilliant sparkle still in her eyes, she fluttered out the door and down the stairs to the street. Where she stopped, the sign read, Madame Sophrony, hair goods of all kinds. One flight up, Della ran and collected herself, panting. Madame, large, too white, chilly, hardly looked a Sophrony. Will you buy my hair? Asked Della. I buy hair, said Madame. Take your hat off. Let's have a sight at the looks of it. Down the brown cascade. $20, said Madame, lifting the mass with a practiced hand. Give it to me quick, said Della. Oh, and the next 2 hours tripped by on rosy wings. Forget the hashed metaphor. She was ransacking the stores for Jim's present. She found it at last. It surely had been made for Jim and no one else. There was no other like it in any of the stores, and she had turned all of them inside out. It was a platinum fob chain, simple and chaste in design, properly proclaiming its value by substance alone and not by meretricious ornamentation, as all good things should do. It was even worthy of the watch. As soon as she saw it, she knew that it must be Jim's. It was like him. Quietness and value. The description applied to both. $21 they took from her for it, and she hurried home with the remaining 87 cents. With that chain on his watch, Jim might be properly anxious about the time in any company. Grand as the watch was, he sometimes looked at it on the sly on account of the old leather strap that he used in place of a chain. When Della reached home, her intoxication gave way a little to prudence and reason. She got out her curling irons and lighted the gas and went to work repairing the ravages made by generosity added love, which is always a tremendous task, dear friends, a mammoth task. Within 40 minutes, her head was covered with tiny, close-lying curls that made her look wonderfully like a truant schoolboy. She looked at her reflection in the mirror long, carefully and critically. If Jim doesn't kill me, she said to herself, before he takes a second look at me, he'll say I look like a Coney Island chorus girl. But what could I do? Oh, what could I do with $1.87? At 7 o'clock, the coffee was made and the frying pan was on the back of the stove, hot and ready to cook the chops. Jim was never late. Della doubled the fob chain in her hand and sat on the corner of the table near the door that he always entered. Then she heard his step on the stair, away down on the first flight, and she turned white for just a moment. She had a habit for saying a little silent prayer about the simplest everyday things, and now she whispered, "Please, God, make him think I'm still pretty." The door opened, and Jim stepped in and closed it. He looked thin and very serious. Poor fellow, he was only 22, and to be burdened with a family. He needed a new overcoat, and he was without gloves. Jim stopped inside the door, as immovable as a setter at the scent of quail. His eyes were fixed upon Della, and there was an expression in them that she could not read, and it terrified her. It was not anger, nor surprise, nor disapproval, nor horror, nor any of the sentiments that she had been prepared for. He simply stared at her fixedly with that peculiar expression on his face. Della wriggled off the table and went for him. "Jim, darling," she cried, "don't look at me that way. I had my hair cut off and sold because I couldn't have lived through Christmas without giving you a present. It'll grow out again. You won't mind, will you? I just had to do it. My hair grows awfully fast. Say Merry Christmas, Jim, and let's be happy. You don't know what a beautiful, nice gift I've got for you." "You've cut off your hair?" asked Jim, laboriously, as if he had not arrived at that patent fact yet, even after the hardest mental labor. "Cut it off and sold it," said Della. "Don't you like me just as well anyhow? I'm me without my hair, ain't I?" Jim looked about the room curiously. "You say your hair is gone?" he said, with an air almost of idiocy. "You needn't look for it," said Della. "It's sold, I tell you, sold and gone too. It's Christmas Eve, boy. Be good to me, for it went for you." "Maybe the hairs of my head were numbered," she went on with sudden, serious sweetness. "But nobody could ever count my love for you. Shall I put the chops on, Jim?" Out of his trance, Jim seemed quickly to wake. He enfolded his Della. For 10 seconds, let us regard with discreet scrutiny some inconsequential object in the other direction. $8 a week or $1 million a year, what's the difference? A mathematician or a wit would give you the wrong answer. The Magi brought valuable gifts, but that was not among them. This dark assertion will be illuminated later on. Jim drew a package from his overcoat pocket and threw it upon the table. "Don't make any mistake, though," he said, "about me. I don't think there's anything in the way of a haircut or a shave or a shampoo that could make me like my girl any less. But if you'll unwrap that package, you may see why you had me going a while at first." White fingers and nimble tore at the string and paper. And then an ecstatic scream of joy, and then, alas, a quick feminine change to hysterical tears and wails, necessitating the immediate employment of all the comforting powers of the Lord of the Flash. For there lay the comb, the set of combs, side and back, that Della had worshipped long in a Broadway window. Beautiful combs, pure tortoise shell with jeweled rims, just the shade to wear in the beautiful vanished pair. They were expensive combs, she knew, and her heart had simply craved and yearned over them without the least hope of possession. And now they were hers, but the tresses that should have adorned the coveted adornments were gone. But she hugged them to her bosom, and at length she was able to look up with dim eyes and a smile and say, "My hair grows so fast, Jim." And then Della leaped up like a little singed cat and cried, "Oh, oh." Jim had not yet seen his beautiful present. She held it out to him eagerly upon her open palm. The dull, precious metal seemed to flash with a reflection of her bright and ardent spirit. "Isn't it a dandy, Jim? I hunted all over town to find it. You'll have to look at the time 100 times a day now. Give me your watch. I want to see how it looks on it." Instead of obeying, Jim tumbled down on the couch and put his hands under the back of his head and smiled. "Dell," said he, "let's put our Christmas presents away and keep them a while. They're too nice to use just at present. I sold the watch to get the money to buy your combs. And now suppose you put the chops on." The Magi, as you know, were wise men, wonderfully wise men, who brought gifts to the babe in the manger. They invented the art of giving Christmas presents. Being wise, their gifts were no doubt wise ones, possibly bearing the privilege of exchange in case of duplication. And here I have lamely related to you the uneventful chronicle of 2 foolish children in a flat who most unwisely sacrificed for each other the greatest treasures of their house. But in a last word to the wise of these days, let it be said that of all who give gifts, these 2 were the wisest. Of all who give and receive gifts, such as they are the wisest. Everywhere they are wisest. They are the Magi. Another nice story. Okay, we've got a bit of time, which I thought might happen, so I'm going to read you a really humorous rhyme. Some of you may know it. It's called Albert and the Lion. Do you know that one? I think you'll enjoy it. It's a hilarious rhyme by a man called Marriott Edgar, and it was actually immortalized by Stanley Holloway. If you remember, if you see, I'm sure you've seen My Fair Lady. He was Eliza Doolittle's dad. You remember that? On getting married in the morning. so on. Anyway, he used to recite this monologue from the musical stage. Musical in England is what they call burlesque in the United States. Giving you the translation. I have to do a... Oh boy, do we have sound?
Yeah.
I have to do a sort of Lancashire accent. The Lion and Albert. There's a seaside place called Blackpool that's noted for fresh air and fun. And Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom went there with Albert, their son. A grand little lad was there, Albert, all dressed in his best, quite a swell. He'd a stick with an horse's head handle, the finest that Woolworths could sell. They didn't think much to the ocean, the waves, they was fiddling and small. There was no wrecks and nobody drowned it. Fact, nothing to laugh at all. So, seeking for further amusement, they paid and went into the zoo, where they lions and tigers and camels, and old ale and sandwiches too. There were one great big lion called Wallace. His nose were all covered with scars. He lay in a somnolent posture, with the side of his face to the bars. Now, Albert had heard about lions, how they were ferocious and wild. And to see Wallace lying so peaceful, well, it didn't seem right to the child. So straightway the brave little fella, not showing a morsel of fear, took his stick with the horse's head handle and pushed it in Wallace's ear. You could see that the lion didn't like it, but giving a kind of a roll, he pulled Albert inside the cage with him and swallowed the little lad whole. His pa, who had seen the occurrence and didn't know what to do next, said, "Mother, your lance at our Albert." And Mother said, "I am best." So Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom, quite rightly when all's said and done, complained to the animal keeper that the lion had eaten their son. The keeper was quite nice about it. He said, "What a nasty mishap. Are you sure that it's your lad he's eaten?" Pa said, "Am I sure there's his cap?" So the manager had to be sent for. He came and he said, "What's to do?" Pa said, "Yon lion's eaten our Albert, and him in his Sunday clothes too." Then Mother said, right, young fella, I think it's a shame and a sin for a lion to go and eat Albert, and after we paid to come in." The manager wanted no trouble. He took out his purse right away and said, "How much to settle the matter?" And Pa said, "What do you usually pay?" But Mother had turned a bit awkward when she thought where Albert had gone. She said, "No, someone's got to be summoned." So that were decided upon. Round they went to the police station in front of a magistrate chap. They told him what happened to Albert. He proved it by showing his cap. The magistrate gave his opinion that no one was really to blame. He said that he hoped the Ramsbottoms would have further sons to their name. At that Mother got proper blazing. "And thank you, sir, kindly," said she. "What, waste all our time raising children to feed ruddy lions? Not me." There is a sequel. Albert's Return. You've heard how young Albert Ramsbottom at the zoo up at Blackpool one year, with a stick with an horse's head handle, gave a lion a poke in the ear. The name of the lion was Wallace. The poke in the ear made him wild, and before you could say, "Bob's your uncle," he'd upped and he'd swallowed the child. He was sorry the moment he'd done it. With children he'd always been chums. And besides, he'd no teeth in his muzzle. He couldn't chew Albert on gum. He could feel the lad moving inside him as he lay on his bed of dried ferns, And it might have been little lad's birthday. He wished him such happy returns. But Albert kept kicking and fighting, and Wallace got up, feeling bad, decided 'twere time that he started to stage a comeback for the lad. Then putting his head down in one corner, on his front paws he started to walk, and he coughed and he sneezed and he gargled, till Albert shot out like a cork. Now Wallace felt better directly, and his figure once more became lean. But the only difference with Albert was his face and his hands were quite clean. Meanwhile, Mr. and Mrs. Ramsbottom had gone back to their tea feeling blue. Ma said, I feel down in the mouth like. Pa said, I bet Albert does too. Said Mother, it just goes to show you that the future is never revealed. If I thought we was going to lose him, I'd have not had his boots soled and heeled. Let's look on the bright side, said Father. What can't be helped must be endured. Each cloud has a silvery lining, and we did have young Albert insured. A knock on the door came that moment, as Father these kind words did speak. 'Twas a man from Prudential, he'd come for their twopence per person per week. When Father saw who had been knocking, he laughed, and he kept laughing so. The man said, here, what's there to laugh at? He Pa said, you'll laugh and all when you know. Excuse him for laughing, said Mother, but really things happen so strange. Our Albert's been ate by a lion. You've got to pay us for a change. Said the young man from the Prudential, now come, let's understand this. You don't mean to say that you've lost him? And Pa said, oh no, we know where he is. When the young man had heard all the details, a purse from his pocket he drew, and he paid them with interest and bonus the sum of £9, 4 and 2. Pa had scarce got his hand on the money, when a face at the window they seen. And Mother cried, hey, look, it's Albert. Father said, it would be. Albert came in all excited and started his story to give. And Pa said, I'll never trust lions again, not as long as I live. The young man from the Prudential to pick up the money began. Father said, here, wait a moment. Don't be in a hurry, young man. Then giving young Albert a shilling, he said, here, pop off back to the zoo. Get your stick with the horse's head handle. Go and see what the tigers can do. I should have mentioned before, when I first met my beautiful wife, Jo, and I recited this, there was a party, everyone had to recite a poem or sing a song or do something, and I guess that was what made her fall in love with me, I don't know.
Am I on? Can you hear me? Yes. Yeah? Okay. If anybody has any questions, we have a few minutes for questions. I don't know what the heck they would be, but you're welcome to ask them. And Michael will answer them.
I may or may not have any.
Anything? No? Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here with us. We'll see you next week, a bit early for a celebration, mini celebration.